Hi Year 10, today what we're doing is we're looking at statistics and we are looking at reviewing statistics, and what we're going to look at today is calculating the median. So the median is the middle score when the scores are placed in order. If there is an even number of scores in the data set, then the median is the average of the two middle scores. So let's look at some examples. So to find the median of each set of scores, so our first set is 12, 13, 15, 17 and 20. So let's make sure that we write these out in order. So they are already in order of 12, 13, 15, 17 and 20. Then what we do is we cross out the first score and the last score, the second score and the second last score, and then we are left with our score in the middle, which is our median of 15. For part B, we have scores 9, 5, 6, 8, 9, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8. So let's write out these scores in order. When we do so, we have 5, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9, 9. So what we do is we cross out the first score and the last score, the second score and the second last score, the third score and the third last score, the fourth score and the fourth last score, and now we're left with two scores. So our median is going to be whatever number is in between these two scores. So what you can do is you can say what number is directly in the middle of 7 and 8. If you were thinking 7.5, you would be correct. However, when we look at some harder problems, we will have a bit of a gap between these two numbers. So what we do is we find the average of these two numbers. So we add the two together, 7 plus 8, and we divide by 2. 7 plus 8 is 15, divided by 2 gives us our median of 7.5. So you can either think and go what number is in between 7 and 8, or you can find the average of the two numbers. For example C, we have the scores 56, 60, 68, 49, 66, 87, 67 and 56. So we need to write these scores in order. When we do so, we get 49, 56, 56, 60, 66, 67, 68 and 87. So then we cross out the first score and the last score, the second score and the second last score, the third score and the third last score, and now we're left with two scores in the middle again. So our median will be whatever score is in between and right in the middle of 60 and 66. So to do this, we add 60 and 66 together to get 126. We then divide this by 2 to get 63. For question D, we have 73, 81, 76, 79, 80, 74, 70, 84, and 74. So what we need to do is write these scores in order. When we do so, we get 70, 73, 74, 74, 76, 79, 80, 81, and 84. We cross out our first score and our last score, second last score, third score, third last score, fourth last score, and we're left with a score in the middle, so our median is 76. So what we're going to look at now is how to calculate interquartile range, or IQR. So interquartile range, IQR, is a measure of spread and is the range of the middle 50% of scores. We calculate IQR by finding the difference between the first quartile and the third quartile, and we use the formula IQR equals Q3 minus Q1. So to find the first quartile Q1 and the third quartile Q3, we first have to find the second quartile, which is the median. So Q1 is then the middle score in the first half of scores, and Q3 is the middle score in the second half of scores. Let's have a look at some examples. So for the data sets below, we're going to calculate the interquartile range. So for our first data set, we have 6, 4, 9, 7, 5, and 8. So our first step is to write this data set in ascending order, so from smallest to largest. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 when we write it in order. So what we want to do is we want to find the median. So we find the median by crossing out the first score and then the last score, the second score, and then the second last score. And then we're left with these two scores in the middle. So our median is a score directly between 6 and 7, which is 6.5. So remember, you can add these two scores together of 6 and 7, which is 13, and divide it by 2 to get 6.5. We then want to calculate our Q1, so our first quartile. So what we do is we look at the first half of scores. So we look at the scores 4, 5, and 6. Now, what we want to do is we want to just look at these scores and find the median of these scores, so the score that's in the middle. So we cross out our first score and our last score to be left with the number 5, which is our first quartile. What we then want to do is find the third quartile. So we look at the second half of scores. So we look at 7, 8, and 9. We cross out our first score and our last score, and we're left with our score that's in the middle, which is our Q3, which is our third quartile, which is 8. We then work out our interquartile range by going IQR equals Q3 minus Q1, which is IQR equals 8 minus 5, so our interquartile range equals 3. What we then want to do is we have example B, and we have the scores 47, 57, 37, 27, 57, 77, and 67. So we first want to write these scores in order. So we get 27, 37, 47, 57, 57, 67, and 77. So then we want to find the median. So we cross out our first score and our last score, our second score and our second last score, our third score and our third last score, and we're left with a score in the middle of 57. So this means that our median is 57. We then want to look at our first half of scores. So because our median is a score of 57, we ignore it and we just look at the first 3 scores. So looking at our first 3 scores, we want to now find the middle score of these, which is our Q1. So we cross out our first score and our last score, and we're left with a score of 37, and that is what our first quartile or Q1 equals. Then to work out our Q3 or our third quartile, what we have to do is we look at the second half of scores. So again, we ignore our median and we just deal with those 3 scores of 57, 67, and 77. We cross out our first score of 57 and our last score of 77, and we're left with our score in our middle, which is 67, which is what our Q3 equals, or our third quartile. Now we want to calculate our interquartile range, which this is Q3 minus Q1, so that's 67 minus 37, which equals 30. Finally, what we're going to look at today is the 5-number summary. So associated with the interquartile range is the 5-number summary of a set of data that is defined as the minimum score, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum score. So let's look at an example. So we want to calculate the 5-number summary for the following data set. So our data set is 10, 9, 8, 10, 7, 15, 11, 11, and 5. So the first step with anything that we're going to have to find the median or quartiles or even the range is to rearrange it from smallest to largest. So let's do that. When we do that, we get 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, and 15. So then we want to calculate the median. So how we calculate the median is, there are 5 numbers that we're trying to find: our minimum score, our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, and our maximum score. So what we should start with is our median. So our median is when we cancel out all our scores and we get the score in the middle. So we're going to cancel out our first score of 5, our last score of 15, our second score, second last score, third last score, fourth last score, and we're left with a number in the middle, which is 10. So that means our median is 10. We're now going to look at our first quartile. So again, we look at the first half of the scores. So we ignore the median when the median is a whole score. And so what we do is we look at the first 4 numbers, which is 5, 7, 8, and 9. So we're going to cancel out the first score and the last score, and then we're left with 2 scores in the middle. So that means our quartile, our Q1, is going to be in between 7 and 8, and the number that is directly in between 7 and 8 is 7.5. We then want to look at our third quartile. So we look at the last half of scores, which is the scores 10, 11, 11, 15. So again, we leave our median out of here and we cancel out our first score and our last score. And then we're left with the 2 11s in the middle. And so our score is what number is directly between 11 and 11. So that is just 11. There's nothing in between 11 and 11. If you're unsure, again, you can add the 2 together. So 11 plus 11 is 22. Divide it by 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11. So that's our third quartile. And then what we need to do is we just need to state what our minimum score is, which is 5, and our maximum score, which is 15.